hooligans, and welcome back for some more Shelton Shenanigans. We are here today to read chapter 18. So super exciting because there's only 19 chapters in the book. So let's go ahead and start off with some questions. Just kidding. Just kidding. So we are going to read chapter 18, and then we will only have chapter 19 and then the in-between sections of chapters 16 through 19, and then that will be the end of the book completely. So super duper exciting. Hopefully you're going to watch these all the way through. So let's go ahead and begin. All right. So remember, they had just picked up their mom and their dad. Annie and Samuel had just found their mom and, well, Samuel's mom, but now their mom and dad. And they had found the boat with Abner, and they are going to the other side of the river. It's Matthew's boat. So they just got Samuel's dad some food, and they are now going to the other side of the river. Perfect. Chapter 18. When they reached the other side of the river and made their way to Abner's wagon, Samuel found Annie asleep, curled up next to Abner's collies. "Annie," he touched her shoulder to wake her. She opened her eyes and threw herself into his arms. He staggered backward under her weight and turned to his parents. "This is our Annie," he said. His mother reached out and stroked her hair. "Annie, I always wanted a little girl." "I had a ma," Annie told her, "but then I didn't." She smiled shyly, even as the tears welled in her eyes. "And now you have a ma again," Samuel's mother whispered through her own tears. "And a pa." Samuel's father stepped forward as he said this. Abner cleared his throat and started to hook up the mules in the light of the slit lantern. "No sentries on this side of the river," Matthew said. "Just stay to the main road north for a time." He handed them a cloth bag. "Emily fixed food for you to take. Good fortune to you all." "I don't know how to thank you," Samuel's father said. "You men have given us back our lives and restored our family." "Help when you can," Matthew said. "We all need help sometimes. I will go back to the boat now and across the river again. There might be others that I'll be able to reach before daylight." And he was gone, and with him the dim glow from the lantern. "Here now," Abner said. "Everybody inside the wagon, except Samuel. Samuel, you need to come up and ride with me. We must talk." With his parents and Annie in the wagon, Samuel felt his way up to the front and climbed up in the seat. In near silence, Abner made a soft clucking sound with his tongue, and the mules started pulling the wagon up the road. Even with the uproar across the river, there was nothing moving on this side. They progressed in quiet for half an hour or so. The mules, Samuel saw, had no trouble seeing the road in the darkness. Were they like cats? Aside from a bump and a rut now and then, it was comfortable. The rain had let up a bit. Samuel's rifle and powder were still inside the wagon, and they were covered, so he had no concern on that level. "We cannot stay together," Abner said suddenly. "All right," Samuel said, kind of startled. "But why?" "It's too dangerous. If we were stopped before, I could say you were my grandchildren. Now, with your mother and father here, that won't work. There would be questions, and with them, danger. I'm afraid we'd be taken prisoner in spite of my passes, so we must separate." "I understand," Samuel said, nodding, though in the darkness Abner could not see it. "You've already done enough, more than enough. I never thought I would be able to see them again, and you've given them back to me. Thank you. We all do what we can do. Now here's the lay of it. We go 3 more hours on this road. It'll get light in 4 hours. We'll be back in the forest, or almost there at that time. Enough for you to have cover. You leave me then and take the forest straight west for 2, maybe 3 hours. Your father will be slow for a time. There you will come to a large swamp. Just before you get into it, turn left and go southwest toward Philadelphia. It's safe there. You'll be about 7 days' travel from town. So here, take this." He handed Samuel something in the darkness, a small brass object like a watch. "It's a compass." "Wait, don't you need it?" "Take it." "Thank you again." "Southwest," Abner repeated. 7 days walking, maybe 8. It's near on 90 miles to Philadelphia, and you'll find trails to help you along. As your father gets stronger, you'll move better. Samuel sat in silence thinking. That's the good news, Abner said. Now for the bad. Somewhere along there, nobody seems to know exactly where, although it'll be thought to be down in Trenton for a time. There will be a place where the British have a defensive line. You may not even know you're going through it, but you may run across the redcoats again. They'll be a mite jumpy, and they'll probably shoot before talking, so avoid them if you can. If you see them at all, stay straight southwest. Don't fall toward the south by over the main road, because that's where they'll be. Southwest, Samuel thought. Samuel was silent, memorizing Abner's instructions, and then he said, Thank you. There really aren't words to. I said that's enough. Now I don't know what Matthew's Emily put up for food, but try to get something with a lot of fat into your father. Fat is where the power is. Red meat and fat. Maybe some raccoon or, if you can, a bear along the way. Thick meat. It's going to be hard for him to walk 90 miles, so be patient with him. Again, Samuel nodded. Yes, I promise, I will. And with your mother, she's very strong, but this is different. They're going to try to be your ma and pa, but for now, you have to be the leader. They don't have the knowledge for what's coming, and you do. And one more thing, take an extra blanket. And then silence, except for the sound of the mules clopping along and their breathing. They met no one, or at least didn't see anybody in the pitch darkness. After a time, Samuel realized he could make out the white markings on the dogs. About then, Abner pulled the mules to a stop. Out here, he said, remember, west to the swamp and then southwest. Yes, again, enough. Away. Samuel jumped off the wagon and went around back. In the dim light, he motioned to them to get out. Annie came out of the back half asleep. Samuel found the food, 2 bundles, and he gave one to his mother and the other to Annie. He tied a blanket next to his bedroll and put it over his shoulder, and then he located his rifle and powder horn, checking the priming in the quarter light, and found it to be good. As soon as he said, All right, Abner clucked at the mules and in a moment was gone in the morning mist. We didn't get to say thank you, his mother said. We can't talk now, Samuel said. Later. Now we have to get moving. Are you all right to walk, Father? Yes, maybe a little slow. We'll see. Good, follow me. And again, we can't talk. He set off without really thinking. He'd been away from the woods and sitting in the wagon for days, out of his element. His body was sick of it, wanted to move. He took off at a near lope. Annie held the pace, as she had when they had been traveling together before. But within 30 yards, his father gasped, Samuel, I can't. His mother was out of breath and limping, but she didn't complain and tried to help support his father. Samuel slowed down, but he wanted to be well away from the road before stopping, so he kept moving them over for a mile. The sun was near enough to the horizon then to shed light everywhere, even through the clouds. He stopped in a small clearing, unrolled his bed, and took out the moccasins he had made those days sitting in the wagon. Father, try these on, he whispered. Can we talk now? His mother also whispered, but he shook his head. Not yet. 2 more hours. He continued whispering, Annie, I will walk in front, you in the rear. If I stop, we all stop, not a sound. If I go down, you all go down. Again, not a sound. Annie, every 40 or 50 paces you turn and listen with your hands cupped to your ear. If you hear something strange or that bothers you, whistle softly. Then we all stop. Is that clear? Yes, his mother started, but he put a finger to her lips. We are all still in danger, great danger, so please, for now, just do as I say. She smiled at him and rested her hand on Annie's shoulder. He turned to his father. Can you hold a slow pace for 2 or 3 hours? His father nodded. I'll do it. Then we go. Samuel started off, this time at a much slower pace, and as quietly as possible, moving along game trails when he found them, below the tops of ridges if there were any so they wouldn't be silhouetted against the skyline, stopping every 40 or 50 paces for Annie and Samuel to listen, to watch, to know if anyone was following them. His parents and Annie obeyed him, and they moved, if not rapidly, at least steadily, until Samuel looked down and saw water seeping into his footsteps. The edge of a swamp lay ahead of him. He found another clearing on a slightly higher and drier ground, and let everybody sit while he dug out food of one of the packages. It was slabs of venison, but with little fat, and corn dodgers, cornbread made into small muffins. They had some lard in them, but not much. He fed the others and pretended to eat, but he put it back in there. There was still a long way to go, and unless he killed something, they would all need food. They would need all the food they could save. All right, he spoke low, almost a whisper. A short rest, just a few minutes, then we need to start southwest. Ask questions now, but soft. What happened to your head? His father asked. That scar. I was hit with a tomahawk, he started. Then he realized he'd have to tell his parents the whole story. He did so, but leaving out the worst parts. We saw you, his mother said, on the other side of the clearing when the shooting started. It was too far away for us to know that it was you. But we saw you when you shot. Did you hit? He nodded. I fired, he went down. The second one clubbed me and I went down, all very fast. Then he told of Cooper and the other volunteers who had helped him, leaving out the part about the man screaming for days. He worked past the rest of it, telling about Caleb and Ma, leaving out the Hessians to the present. But how could you, his father said, you're 13. We'll have time for me to answer everything later, but for now let me tell you what Abner said. And he told of the British line they may have to cross, the possible danger and the situation in Philadelphia. When he was done, he stood and picked up his rifle. We go again now, all day if we can. Father, I think if we go slowly, I'll be all right, his father said. Drink as much water as you can from each stream. The water helps. And he didn't add that the water keeps his stomach full Drink as much water as you can from each stream, because the water helps, Samuel said. And he didn't add that the water keeps the stomach full and from being so hungry. Annie, you're in the back, me in the front. No talking, and remember, Annie, a soft whistle if you hear something strange. And he set out. He knew his father was weak, but he worried that if they favored the weakness, it could get worse. He kept the pace all day, checking the compass every few minutes. They stopped often to drink from the small streams and creeks, and there were many, with short, silent breaks every hour and a half or so, until it was early evening, and he saw his father weaving. They came to a small rise out of the moist lowlands, and he pulled up there, on the back or western side, and stopped. No fire, he said softly. Cold camp. Father, you eat until you're full. Mother and Annie, hold it down to a little, just a taste, and I'm going back to the trail. Wait here for me. He trotted back the way they had come, stopping often to listen, smell, and absorb. He didn't feel completely safe until he had gone about half a mile and had not seen or heard anything. Then he moved back to where he had left them and found them sitting back against the tree, his father and Annie wrapped inside his blanket roll, already dozing. We're clear, he whispered to his mother. His rifle lay across his lap. Get some sleep. She was studying him. You're so different now, Samuel. Grown. No, I'm the same. It's everything else that's changed, Samuel said. She shook her head. No, you've changed. Not in a bad way. You just know things. You see things differently, think differently. If I didn't know you, I don't think I would recognize you. It's like you've gone to some faraway land and come back a different person. But I love the new Samuel just as much as I love the old. And I'm very glad and so very thankful that you're with us, to show us and to lead us. She held his hand. Good night, Mother. Good night, new Samuel. Such a good chapter. We've got one chapter left, so be sure that you are keeping up and make sure that you've done all the rest of your work also. And we've got one chapter left, so I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here so that I can read it. Remember that I love you, and go change the world.